The Acolyte is not far away, and if it performs well, it could potentially spark a whole new generation of interesting High Republic movies and shows. We are just 2 weeks away from the first 2 Acolyte episodes, and many people are quite excited for this series. There's obviously a group of people who are not very interested in it, and personally I am a little bit reserved because as of right now Disney haven't done a great job at portraying the dark side in a satisfactory way, at least to me. But you might have a different opinion, and that's completely fine. However, regardless of what we think of the series right now, even before watching it, it does spark a question, and that is that I think Acolyte has the possibility to awaken a whole new range of movies and shows centered around the High Republic era of Star Wars. The Acolyte is the first live-action entry to the High Republic era. Even though it's almost at the end of the era, it doesn't mean it will be the last time we'll see any form of live-action material around the High Republic era, and kind of test those themes and ideas among the fans who enjoys the movies and shows and not particularly the comics and the novels. I do think that if Acolyte proves itself to do financially well, there's a possibility that they might decide to make more content around this era. So it does raise the question, what kind of content are we going to see? And based on the different stories that we've gotten from the novels and the comics, there's a lot of story potential here that can be translated into a live action movie or an animated series or whatever it may be around that similar spectrum of content. But in terms of direct ideas for movies and shows that they can make around the High Republic era after the first season of Acolyte has concluded, it could be a whole series all around the Nihil organization, or a range of movies around the Nihil. For those who have read the comics and the novels around the High Republic, definitely knows what I'm talking about when I say the Nihil organization. But for those who don't know, they are one of the primary enemies or oppositions in the galaxy during this era. And they aren't the only ones, but they are definitely the ones that spark a lot of conflict during this time period in the galaxy. So if they take the Nihil and they go deep into the stories, there's enough content there for them to make a range of episodes in a series or possibly a few movies as well. We could also see more insight into a younger version of Yoda through a movie or a series. Just imagine this, a series that's simply named Yoda. I think that would be interesting. Quite interesting actually. But honestly, we don't really need to have a series named that. It could be named something else, and then Yoda could be one of the primary characters in that series, and we will see him a few hundred years younger from what we saw in the Clone Wars and in the original trilogy era, and then we can get a better overview of who he was as a person during that time of Star Wars when the Republic was quite different than what we have seen mostly today, if we look away from the Legends material. Another thing that could be interesting to see from a series standpoint, or maybe a movie, but most likely a better option for a series, would be a series about Republic Rangers fighting for different hyperspace lanes. And the concept of the hyperspace lanes have been used for different story narratives, so it wouldn't be out of the box trying to make some stories around these Republic Rangers that jump into their fighters and trying to maintain the control over hyperspace lanes, or at least keep them out of the way from enemy forces. And from a series like this, they could take a lot of similar approaches like they did with Andor, by keeping it very realistic, by keeping it away from elements of the Force, and also trying to be very grounded with their theme, so that the overall experience feels quite consistent, just like Andor. So those were just a few ideas that we could possibly see translated into movies or shows for the High Republic era. We also know that a second season of Acolyte is also a possibility, and if I remember correctly, they have mentioned that the series is written in a way that would allow them to create more seasons of this series if needed. So even though when Season 1 of Acolyte has concluded and they continue to create Acolyte Season 2 and possibly Acolyte Season 3, they could start working on other projects as well around this same era that will allow fans that do not read the novels and the comics to be better introduced to this universe through movies and shows. Also, from what I understand, in about a year's time, they will have concluded all of the planned novels around this era. So unless they intend to expand on the High Republic with more novels and comics, the only other option they have is really to focus on other forms of entertainment mediums like movies, shows, and possibly video games as well. So I do think that now that we have a really strong foundation due to the novels and the comics of the High Republic, Disney Star Wars now have a great opportunity to transitioning over to other forms of storytelling for a different audience, or more specifically for a more broader audience in the Star Wars franchise. I really think that Acolyte has the potential to unlock a new era of Star Wars content around the time period of the High Republic, and I do think it would be the right direction to go if they insist on focusing on creating more stories around this era. Also, it could be a good trial experiment before they possibly venture into the Old Republic content. It will be a way for them to test and see what kind of stories people like and what people don't like, so that they can make the better decisions once they move over to the Old Republic content and start developing more canon stories there. But with that said, do let me know in the comment section below what you think about the upcoming Acolyte series. Are you excited about it like many fans are, or are you keeping yourself a little bit reserved for now until you actually see the series? And if you have any interest in the High Republic era, what do you think Disney Star Wars should do with the future content once the lineup of planned novels and comics have concluded? Do let me know in the comment section below. And with that, never forget, the Force is always with you.